There we go. Take 2 on this video idea. I stopped take 1 before I was done because there is a big pot in front of my timer and I want to know about how long my video is taking. This idea that I'm going to talk about now is an idea I've had for a while. Here's my book that I use to write down my ideas for my YouTube videos. On the 4th page is where I wrote this idea down. But I've been focusing on my big projects, my Geico commercial series, my changes made by the Joseph Smith translation series, my differences in the stories in the Quran and the Bible that should be the same series. So, I made a list of 4 things that Mormons, individual Mormons, not the official church doctrine, but Mormons have said or believed. Some of these things I've even heard them with my own ears, some of them I've read, some of them I've heard us accused of believing, and I'm not sure if I've heard a person say it, but it sounds like something a Mormon might say. The things on this list are all things that I either say maybe, but I'm not sure about, or if I agree with the statement, it's not something about which I am dogmatic. Of course, dogma is the teachings of the religion. Dogma is things that are certain and definite. In my religion, and probably other religions, there are things that we're taught maybe. There are things that are conclusions that have been reached based on revelations, but aren't clear or aren't official doctrines. And so, let's jump into this list. Jesus Christ was married when he was on the earth. I've heard people say that. I've heard people say that when he turned the water into wine, that was his own marriage ceremony, his own wedding that he did that at. Where do I stand on this one? Well, the church has no official position on this. It's not a dogma of the church one way or the other. And of interesting note, back in the 1800s, when Mormons were being polygamous, there were Mormons who were saying not only did Jesus get married when he was on the earth, but that he got married to more than one woman at the same time. I have no strong opinion on this. If I had to guess, I lean towards the idea he might have gotten married. See, I'm not sure about it. It's definitely not something I've got a strong opinion on that he did do it. But I think it's ridiculous to say we can be certain that he didn't do it. One thing that I've heard said is that Jesus Christ's atonement atoned for the sins of people on the other worlds that God has created and populated. That one is not something that the church is firm about. It's not a dogma. It's not something that's taught often. The scriptures are not clear on that. But maybe that's about that issue. That does the atonement of Jesus Christ apply to the forgiveness of sins of people on other worlds? Maybe. Yeah, one of the things us crazy Mormons are accused of is believing we get to pick our families. That before we were born, our spirit was looking down on the earth and saw that there was a pregnant woman there, and that we said, that one's my mommy, I want to go to that one. That's my mom and dad, I want that one. The church does not have a position about how we ended up, in which family we ended up with. Maybe we did have some say in it. Maybe we did get to pick our family to some degree. But Heavenly Father is in charge of it, And if we got to pick our families, Heavenly Father definitely had some veto power. So maybe we had some influence in our families. But, God definitely had final say. Maybe there was somebody who was really popular and more people wanted to have that person as a parent than then that person had of kids. What we definitely do believe, what the church definitely does believe, is we did exist. Our spirit was alive before we were born onto this earth, and our spirit had reached maturity. So we had opinions and thoughts and feelings. So it is entirely plausible that we were looking down and that we had families or people that we did hope to go to. And one thing the church is definite, a dogma of the church, our Father in heaven is literally our Father in heaven of our spirits. He loves us. He set this earth life up for us to benefit us. And He doesn't force us to have kids or not have kids. If God was forcing us, there would never be a pregnancy coming out of a rape. There would never be a pregnant single woman. If God was forcing us to have the perfect situations on this earth and not letting us choose whether we would obey the commandments and choose what we would do, men and women would be infertile. They wouldn't be able to have sex. It would be impossible for them to have sex before they got married. But God designed us so we can choose to have sex before we get married. Bad choice, but an option available to us because we get to choose. And so God's got some sorting out to do. God has to decide which of His spirit children get sent to the single mothers of the world, get sent to the widows of the world. Maybe, and some people are born without their father's influence in their life because the father died. But the father did marry the mother. It was a husband and a wife. God's got to decide which of His spirit children He's going to send to the Mormon families, to the inactive Mormon families or members of the church that don't come out to church and drink and smoke, to the Mormon families that do obey the commandments, do come to church. Which spirits will He send to the religious families that aren't Mormon? Which spirits will He send to the atheist couples or the agnostic, non-practicing couples? God's got a lot of sorting out to do, and God takes into account the individual spirit's knowledge and strengths and weaknesses and personality, and does the best He can matching spirits up with these different circumstances of birth. So that's where that stands. Last but not least on this list, one thing that we are certain about is God made worlds without number. That's the wording in the scriptures. Does that mean there's literally no number, or the number is too big for people to calculate? If there's no number, is there no number because it's growing, because God keeps making more worlds? Either way, God has made other worlds that He populated with spirit children and physical bodies like us. And the reason Jesus Christ came to this world, I've heard Mormons say this, is on the other worlds they would not have killed Jesus Christ, but we are worse than the other worlds, and we're the only world Jesus Christ could have come to and been crucified. All the other worlds would not have crucified Him, which is an important part of the atonement. That's something that I've heard Mormons say it, and do I believe that? I say maybe to that. So, those are things that I've heard Mormons say that I say maybe to. And you have a good day. Thank you for watching.